Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is James, and today we're sitting in front of my dart frog vivarium, and we are at part 2 of a vivarium build series. We finished in part 1 the background, and today we're going to put in our false bottom and drainage layer. And while that might not be the most exciting part of building a vivarium, it is probably the most important part as far as the long-term success of your vivarium. And with a tropical vivarium, you are misting it several times a day, and that water has to go somewhere. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a false bottom, and it's going to create a layer where all of the water can drain into. That's going to keep the water from leaching up into your soil and turning it into a big soggy saturated mess, which isn't healthy for your plants or your animals. And so stay tuned, and I'll be right back and we'll get started. Okay, so what we're starting off with here is a piece of what they call egg crate, which is actually just a light diffuser that you can find in the ceiling tile section of any big hardware store. And I have cut that down to the dimensions of the bottom of my vivarium. The side pieces I've cut to the same lengths, but I made them 1.5 inches wide. And as you can see here, I am just putting this thing together with zip ties. And I'm going to use zip ties all around, and it's just going to make a platform that will sit kind of snugly in the bottom of the vivarium. Okay, now that that step is completed and you can see what that looks like, you'll see I have a piece of PCB pipe, and I've cut that to be about 2 or 1.5 inches above the top of this platform. And I've cut a hole in it that pipe is just going to fit snugly into. And that's going to give me a place to go to when I need to drain the water out of the bottom of the tank. Something to keep the substrate from falling into the water, and what this is just a piece of weed barrier, and they're real expensive. You can buy a whole roll of it at any hardware or garden store. And I've cut a piece to be just a little bit bigger than the dimensions of the top and sides of this piece. And then what I'm doing, I'm just cutting some slits into that, and I'm going to use the same zip ties to zip tie that tightly around it. And that's going to fit in there and just keep the substrate from going into the water and keep that drainage layer clean. Okay, and this is what the false bottom looks like in the vivarium. And I think what we'll do now is just go ahead and add our substrate. For the substrate, I use a recipe for ABG mix, which is 1 part composted leaves, 1 part bark chips like Repta chips, and 2 parts coconut coir. And what I'm doing before I put in the substrate, I'm putting in just a little bit of a layer of charcoal. And this was just some charcoal that I had left over from some springtail cultures. And so that's I'm sure got some springtails left in it. I'm going to put that in there and start adding the substrate. So here you can see I'm being pretty careful to not get the substrate into that pipe, the drainage pipe. And what I'm going to do next is use a little bit of sphagnum and put that around the edges of that pipe. And that just kind of keeps the substrate, and when you're misting it and it's getting wet, it just kind of helps keep the substrate from getting into that pipe. And it also gives kind of a soft surface. When I'm going to do this next step is I'm going to use a Petri dish lid, just like the Petri dishes that you use for dart frog eggs. And that just, I've found that that's a good size, and it just lays flat on top of that piece of PCB pipe. And that's going to prevent any kind of animal, whether it's a burrowing animal or you don't want any kind of animal being able to get into that pipe. And I set a little rock on top of those. That kind of lets me know in the future where I put that pipe, so when I need to clean it, take that rock away and take off that piece of Petri dish, and it just leaves that exposed for me to take. Okay, and that's about it. I'm happy with this turned out. We have our substrate in, and we'll be ready to go on to the next step, which will be adding plants and making it bioactive. And and that will be the subject of part 3 of this vivarium build. Okay, that's it for this part 2 of our vivarium build series. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you did enjoy it, do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe button, or hit the notification bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are available. And in the next part 3, we'll move on to the plants and making it bioactive. So stay tuned, and until then, I look forward to seeing you again real soon.